Hi, my name is Stephanie Sund, and the applied behavior analyst that I have chosen is Philip Hineline. Philip Hineline is an ABA/teacher extraordinaire. He has won quite a few awards for his teaching strategies, and he has helped build the curriculum for interdisciplinary master's program that is utilized across behavioral analysis colleges today. He obtained his qualifications and education through his Bachelor of Arts starting at Hamilton College, his PhD in psychology from Harvard University, and he was a researcher at the Walter Reed Army Institute and is now currently a researcher and professor at Temple University. His authored works are comprised of peer-reviewed articles. He focuses it on terminology and the avoidance conditioned behavior through radical behaviorism. So in these works, he likes to go over the different works of other behavior analysts and go over, it doesn't matter if they are Skinnerian or if they believe in mentalism, but he will go through their terminology and basically break down the concept of terminology and how they all relate together. However, everyone has a different way of saying something. His authored works also focus on conditioned avoidance. With the avoidance conditioned behavior, unlike Pavlov, who used reinforcement to give the rats food, Hineline and his experimentation focused on continued shocking and taking away that avoidance stimuli. So for instance, if you have a child who wants a cookie and you don't want to give the child the cookie, you want them to continue doing their work, you would avoid that aversive stimuli and not give them the cookie, not even mention the cookie, not even have the cookies present to be a stimuli for a motivating operation, but teach the child that they have to continue their acceptable behavior no matter what. No reinforcement needed. So for Hineline's research and beliefs, like I said before, he was a Skinnerian, so he based all of his works off of the beliefs of B.F. Skinner. B.F. Skinner was his mentor, and actually while he was in college in the Pigeon Lab was not a type of experiment, it was actually the experimentation laboratory at Harvard University. And B.F. Skinner was able to teach classes there and work with the students in Hineline's class. And in one of the articles, Hineline discusses the Pigeon Lab, the experimentation that they did there, and for his final exam, Skinner actually showed up right before his evaluation and was able to discuss different theories and ideology that he had for future experimentation, and they discussed fine-tuning those ideas of how to carry out an experiment. Again, as I said before, he focused on avoidance conditioned behavior, so taking away an aversive stimuli that has already conditioned behavior, so basically taking away the reinforcement to still get your desired behavior without reinforcement. The first interview question that I would like to ask Hineline is, what first interested you in applied behavior analysis? And is there any other area of study that you almost pursued instead? We all have a past, and we all didn't want to be psychologists to begin with. So what made Philip Hineline want to be an applied behavior analyst. The second question is, knowing what we know about environmental effects on conditioned behavior, do you think that had you not met B.F. Skinner, would you still shared the views that differed, or would you still have the views that were the same or differ more from his? The third interview question is, what was the influence and thought process behind your very first experiment? So, as we had mentioned, Philip Hineline liked to take the ideas of different behavior analysts and create his own experimentation off that. Like for his avoidance, he used Sidman's avoidance conditioning and combined it with Pavlov's conditioned behavior with adversive stimuli, and went more in depth into his own spin on avoidance conditioning by taking out that stimuli, but still using the same principle of providing shocks. The fourth interview question is, many of Hineline's authored works are controversial to other applied behavior analysts and were written to point out the flaws in their theories. Did you find this affected how others viewed you professionally in any way? So basically, because he wrote many published articles on diving into the flaws in different experimenters and researchers' terminology, and basically proving, oh, well, you thought you were a mentalist, but really your views directly correlate into radical behaviorism due to your terminology. Did that affect how other behavior analysts viewed him? The last question is, what advice would you give to the upcoming generation of applied behavior analysts? So we're all new, aspiring behavior analysts trying to get into psychology and study human behavior to some extent. So what is the best advice that Philip Hineline can give us? So Philip Hineline's importance to ABA, like we said already, language controversy. So a lot of his published works were comprised of terminology and explaining in depth the terminology and correlation between different behavior analysts and how they basically said the same thing in a different way, and how we have to be careful of our terminology because in society, in the real world, they use the same terminology that psychology does, but in a completely different way. So understanding, knowing those terminologies, those concepts, and what we can do to kind of change that for society so we're all viewing terms the same way. Next is, Philip Hineline was a former president of the Association for Behavior Analysis International Research Organization. So this is actually really important to me because the field of behavior analysis study that I am viewing for studying human behavior and evaluating it falls under a lot of the research that is done in ABAI. And lastly, Philip Hineline was an award-winning teacher. I had mentioned that in the very beginning, being an ABA teacher extraordinaire. He continues to teach at Temple University and do research projects with the students there, teaching his views on avoidance. He has recently changed his study to focus more on working with children with autism. And with his addition to comprising the curriculum for interdisciplinary behavior, he has won at least 5 awards. And that concludes my presentation for Philip Hineline. These are some of the resources that I used. Thank you.